Welcome back to the Dr. Coach Show. I am your host, Dr. Coach Daniel Pueblos, and I have my good friend here, Hafez Karimi, but we all know him by Fez. How we doing today, Fez?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
There you go. Yeah, listen, man. I've been following you, with the band and seeing what you've been doing the past several years, as far as in music. Being that you're a professional musician, so that's why I wanted to bring you on the show, right? I think you can really definitely provide some value and just give a little background, and a different perspective, on the music industry. Talk about your journey, because there are a lot of people out there who want to get it started. You want to get started in the industry, and um, or sometimes they just don't know, right? Just don't know like what to expect, and that's why I like to bring different professionals like yourself on to kind of give that insight. So I definitely appreciate you coming on, man.
Of course, man.
So talk to me about that. Talk to me about like what got you started in music. Like what drove Little Fez like well, I don't know how little, but what drove Fez to get started in music, and like where did that passion and where did all that stuff come from?
It's kind of tricky because I was born in Iran and there wasn't a lot of access to music there at first. So I would just listen to old recordings of pop artists over there and like air guitar to them. And everyone just saw that I just really liked the idea of a guitar, but I never got exposed to it. And then later on, by the time I was about freshman in high school, is when I was living in a shelter, and the shelter was right next to a church that I went to for recreation and just hanging out. And then they kind of got to know me, and I became a core member of the church. And then they started teaching me how to play guitar and put me in part of the band. And I started learning all that stuff. Then for Christmas, they gave me my first guitar, and then I kind of just started picking it up and going forward with it. It was just at first it's just brutal because no one wants to hear you practice and play because you suck, and then you just kind of gotta keep staying with it. And then once I finished my first year of playing, I went to Fullerton High School, where I met James Torres, and he was the first guy that I met that we started playing. Like he's like, I picked up drums from playing Rock Band, and I'm like, I picked up guitar from playing Guitar Hero. So let's see how this works. And we just picked some,
That was an awesome game, by the way. Yeah.
because I started playing stuff on Expert, and I was like, okay, maybe I should try the real thing at
Yeah.
that point. And then that's when I kind of started heading that direction. And we started picking Metallica songs and like AC/DC songs to see if we can just play them. And we terribly butchered them for half a year to a year, and then went to. I brought him to my church. We kind of picked up lessons there, and it moved forward, and we got a little bit better. But then I would get in pretty deep discussions with my pastors about things that I had problems with in the big book, and we went over stuff like homophobia and how the church treats women and the lack of abolishment of slavery and stuff like that. So like I kind of stopped going to church for those reasons, but then I still kept great friends from there. And then slowly me and James started playing in a bunch of bands and playing really crappy gigs in front of like the train station, playing for Chain Reaction, which is like the worst place in the world to play because they just exploit musicians. They're just like, you have to sell this many tickets to come play for free. And at that age, you're so young and you're excited to be on a stage that you'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
After our first gig there, I was like, yeah, we're not doing this again. And then it just kept getting a little bit better, going into coffee shops and little small venues, and got better and better as time went by. And then I went to Fulton College where I met Joe Jewell, and he was probably one of the biggest influences on the guitar for me because he was one of those guys that just was like zero bullshit. Like he will call you on everything that he needs to if you are gonna quote unquote be a professional musician. Like you better know what you're talking about when you're in front of him. So, first lessons was pretty brutal because he was just like, your time sucks, your feel sucks, your tone sucks, your improvisation sucks. You can't read, your ear doesn't work well, you haven't listened to enough music. It was just like in depth, just breaking down your playing to like why you're not sounding good, and now you can go pretend to sound good, or you could like humble yourself and learn to like how to develop all those things. And that's where I kind of had like my breakdown day of, am I gonna quit or am I gonna work 8 hours a day? And he kind of like structured my world of, okay, so you need to do this and this and this so you don't suck, not that you're good, so you don't suck. Like, it developed from there. And it just, I remember like the most memorable day was like I asked him a question about tritone substitution, which is like how jazzers will play progressions over other progressions. And he told me something along the lines of, you're not significant enough for me to answer that, so you should find some significance to yourself, so like you're worthy of being like taught. And which was pretty heavy, but I understood.
I was gonna say, tell me how you really feel.
Like that's what I appreciated about him though, because he
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
sugar. This is a
There's no
rough world.
bullshit. It's like it is, because yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that will just like beat around the bush and just tell you what you want to hear, but you don't get any growth from that. And that's across the board, right?
Yeah, and I appreciate that he didn't sugarcoat stuff. He was like, "There's a million guitar players out there trying to do the same thing you do, so you got to be really good, and you got to be easy to work with, and you got to be conscious of your problems and what you need to work on. And if you don't want to do that, don't waste my time."
Yeah,
In a as straightforward way as I can imagine him doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like, so that's how you guys started, and up until that point, just like, and that's why I've had a couple other musicians on here, but talking to different people, I've been around you guys, seeing you guys play, seeing you guys get the gigs. Um, like, what are some like major challenges that you encountered, since that time where you kind of got your start? You're going to Fullerton College. So like, what are some common challenges that you encountered that helped kind of shape you to the person and the musician that you are today?
I mean, there was challenges that were prevalent at the beginning that you can kind of like after I met Joe, understanding how bad my time really was and how to play in time and lock into a drummer and what a pocket is supposed to feel like. And then
Yeah,
once you're in the pocket, how not to play too loud and when to come up loud for your solos. I mean, go back down to not being overbearing when other people are playing. A lot of really fundamental stuff that I feel like guitar players specifically struggle with, like volume, because it's not like a horn instrument. You just blow harder for you to get a bigger sound. You just turn up your amp and you have that great sound. But then when the singer starts singing, it's up to you to either pluck lighter or turn down your volume and be able to adjust to the band, which it seems simple, but it actually takes a lot of work for people to be able to hear and properly uh, find a space in the music. That's the musical perspective. And then like the struggles with actually moving forward with things was just being able to understand you're on a pretty crappy gig that doesn't pay well and it's not doing well, but you have to go through this process to get to the next gig. And each year it has gotten significantly better than the last. And the main thing was not getting crapped out by it and not going, oh, okay, this is hard. I'm not playing like the biggest stadiums yet. I'm not famous, so like I'm over it. And the big thing that changed that is like removing what success in music was for me, because I first, like, everybody wants to be a rock star and be on the big stage, but
yeah,
like once I started caring about like other people's approval, and it became about how good is the music and how much do I enjoy it and who am I playing with and how much are they enjoying it. And that started developing into a place of you're just happy with what you're doing and people can tell how happy you are when you're really truly enjoying yourself. And then from there things got a lot easier. I wouldn't have to call as much to like book stuff. People would start calling me, hey, I saw you here, this person told you about here. So it started moving up to going from booking like downtown Fullerton Roscoe's, then booking Brewery X, and then getting to play for the Anaheim Ducks. And Even before that, playing with people like Michael Dean, who I played the LA Rams Christmas party with, stuff like that. It's that you just keep going. You get your little accomplishments and then stay hungry the next
Yeah,
day. What's the next step? That's probably the biggest challenge, to not get comfortable, not get satisfied, but still
that's
enjoy
awesome.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you definitely have to enjoy what you do, right? Especially like all those times where I'm sure you've hit up a lot of different venues and spots and gigs, and probably got turned down a lot, right? And then, like just like most every other musician out there who's trying to get going. Um, so like, what is it? Like, what is it that you feel, either that you and or like just musicians in general, like what does it take to help keep that fire burning, right? To kind of, because I'm sure, and you can tell me if you experience this or not. But I know, like, I've talked to other musicians who have like times of sort of like imposter syndrome, or like, am I good enough? Like, is this what I need, what I want to do in my life, right? Like, what's been your experience with that?
Well, like the hard part wasn't even like approaching these venues and not getting in and not getting picked. It's the ones that you do get picked, and then you realize how bad they actually treat musicians, and like
Oh,
they expect you to play for exposure or for free and stuff like that. And at first, when you don't have um, the credibility to like be like turning down gigs, you would just accept those because there's no other way to play. So you just willing to play for whatever it comes. But at some point, you start like, because I studied economics most of my life, and I got my bachelor's, and then I finished my master's. And in the process of that, I learned a lot about how, like, demand actually works, and how you can uh, manufacture your own sense of the pricing and what people's worth are based on how little you can actually pay them. And so the way that it worked out for Huntington Beach is a perfect example of that. That's like a place that they would rather have two guys bang on trash cans and bring 50 of their drinking buddies to play than hire a really good band to kill and develop like a theme for like a Thursday night is like, blues night.
yeah,
This is the rock night. Instead of paying musicians who are good to bring a completely different atmosphere, they view it as like, if these two bums are willing to play for nothing and bring 50 of their drinking friends, that would be way preferred than go out and pay a band $1,000 a night to show up and kill it, but not bring as many people because their job is not promoters, they're musicians. And that's where it gets kind of tricky. And the way I dealt with that is I just don't really do free gigs anymore unless it's like somebody who like really is a good friend of mine. I'm doing it more of a favor. And outside of that, if they lowball me, I'll just cut musicians. I'll be like, all right, if you're gonna pay us $300, we're gonna do a trio. If you're gonna pay us $200, we're gonna do a duo. And then you're not gonna get the full, 13-piece funk band for $300. Like, and that made the musicians feel more valued. It made us feel more unified and understand what our worth is. And it allowed me to negotiate better wages, like especially all the way up to like Brewery X and Anaheim Ducks and stuff like that.
yeah. No, yeah, and I've had the opportunity to see you and the rest of your band, like with California Soul Tones, right? Um, I've seen you guys kind of progress and just continue to grow, from those smaller gigs and to now, you're playing in these bigger venues and you're getting a following, and so I see it with my own eyes, and it's beautiful. It's awesome to, I know, whether you've had, certain musicians leave, some come in, some new, it just continue to see you and everyone else moving forward, right? And like you said, you're going from these small gigs to now, playing at the Honda Center where the Anaheim Ducks play. Um, it didn't happen overnight, and I did. I saw it in my own two eyes, and that's why I love seeing that progression, and just being able to witness all that, so yeah, it's been pretty cool seeing all that progress. So like when you've seen all the different musicians around you, what are some characteristics that you feel kind of separate those who kind of make it to the bigger venues, to more, better gigs, and those who kind of plateau after like doing all those like small gigs, and that's where kind of where it stops. Like, what are some like characteristics that you feel kind of separate those two kind of musicians?
Well, that's kind of tough to judge at first because anybody can be nice at first. Like,
Yeah.
so everybody's really starts out super sweet and nice, but after about 6 months, I would say, the main determinants is attitude. It's are you causing drama? Are you making people excited to show up to rehearsals and play? Or are you like burnt out and you don't really want to be there and it's about the money? Or there are just people that you're not gonna satisfy. Like they'll get bored easy, or they're just not into it. And with those musicians, like I think they're amazing still, and I don't really like look down on them or anything. I just feel like I'm trying to create like a cohesive group of people who really enjoy playing with each other and developing. So that's the first thing, making sure they're hangable. Like they just want to hang out, and it's not just I'm just gonna show up and play and leave. Um,
Yeah.
and after that, it becomes, obviously, can they play? That's the next big part, and which is kind of a tricky thing because some people, personally prefer somebody who is hungry for it and is working hard more than someone who's just virtuosic and are just very good at what they do, but
Mhm.
they're lazy. So I typically go with the harder worker than the purely talented musician. But I definitely have some incredibly talented musicians in the band right now that are also hard workers. Like perfect example is our current keyboard player, that guy Andrew Edwards. He USC cat, just monster classical guy, but can play, has great sound design, has great attitude, shows up to everything, and is just super hungry to be there. And stuff like that is what gets me excited, because when you get a musician that's that good, they're kicking your ass, so you have to work harder. So it pushes everybody to be like, all right, we need to like make this sound incredible, like not
Yeah.
just good. And those are the people that I feel like really inspire me to like keep going.
Yeah, that's a great point because I mean I think that's across the board with any industry. I mean, we definitely want to like if yourself if you want to grow as a professional in whatever industry you're in, I think if you surround yourself by people who are just kind of lollygagging or just kind of going with the flow, uh, how much growth are you really going to have as compared to like surrounding yourself with people who are like, hey, I'm trying to get to this point and we're still down here. Like, let's get the shit going, right? And that kind of like you said, motivates you to keep going and keep pushing you. Um,
But
and that kind of you kind of see how like it kind of it brings the best out of you, and also kind of weeds out the people who maybe shouldn't be there. It weeds out the non-hard workers because they're like, oh shit, I don't want to keep going to rehearsal, I don't want to keep doing this, and then that's okay, there's the door, we'll go find someone who's more hungry, right? So I kind of, yeah, you kind of see it working both ways, I think.
there are sometimes musicians that you get that are really really good, and they do want to push the band,
Yeah.
and but there's a difference between like coming to rehearsal with ideas of how to inspire people and push it forward, than
Yeah.
show like it's not good and the band needs to push forward and I don't have any suggestion, but this sucks. Like hard to work with. It's like, all right, so you're not satisfied. You don't know how to become satisfied. You don't know what you're asking for, but you're just like are unhappy about like everything, which like it's like a process, because there are some musicians that have been in the band and they love it, and after a while it kind of gets to a point that like they're just like want more and more, as like we all want to grow. But then some people can channel in a productive way where they're like helping things get better, and then some people become like a little more destructive. And usually when they step away from it for a little bit, then they like it comes to a point of like, okay, yeah, we could have done better and we could have been communicating a little easier. But to me, it's just making sure everyone feels respected and loved while they're there, and if they're not there, that they still feel like they're an important part of how we've gotten there, and feel the appreciation and respect that I have for them. Because every person that's come through this band, from when I was in high school till now, uh, I have tremendous respect for, and I felt like they were a big part of the building block of how we got to where we're at. So I don't view any of it as a failure, really, no matter how heated or difficult certain situations got. Because they're still some of my best friends from back in the day. One of my best buddies, Spencer on bass, to like Lily on bass, to James and Tina, and just incredible people that we played with over the years. That will always be in my heart. That are very important people to me.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's kind of helped with your own growth, right? Like as a leader of the group and seeing, how things, people, there's different personalities involved, right? So like speaking on that, like talk to me about, because I know you've played, like with the duo or a solo or as a as a group. Talk to me about the different experiences and or challenges that come with the difference different kind of the groups or settings.
So I started out more in a rock band kind of setting, and
Okay.
Joe Jewell was the really big influence on me, who was like, okay, a drummer can't just go out there and play a solo gig. Like,
Yeah.
you can learn classical, you can play like jazz chords and then play the melody if you loop them, or there's a million other things you could do with guitar by yourself,
Sure.
including singing. And then if you can sing on top of that, then it even opens up more avenues. So it started with me just working on classical and understanding, one, how hard it is and how bad I sucked when I first started, and how different it is from electric. And to be able to even pluck one note properly and get a big sound, it takes like filing your nail properly, knowing how much skin and nail to use on each note. And it was like a really difficult process. Then once I started getting that together, I started getting called by these companies that would do really fancy, essentially rich people events, like baby showers, movie nights, anything, birthdays, whatever comes their way. So they would send me out to these solo gigs, which were really well paying. And I started realizing that I'm making half or a third of my income now from just playing these short an hour and a half gigs for pretty solid pay. Then as that was developing, I started doing stuff with well, first I was doing some of this stuff with Michael Dean a while back, just doing simple duo gigs. But since then I've been working with Nico, who's like a really awesome Nico Domingo. He's a violinist, trumpet player, and a great singer. I've been working with Haley Capello, who's been just awesome friend over the years and has been
Who we
booking me.
also had on the show as well. Another guest on the show.
Right on. Yeah. So she's been awesome to work with and do weddings with. And recently, I've been doing a duo with Bianca Varner, who's a very talented singer, and she's been really fun to work with. Very on the soul and jazz side of things. And so those are like the main trios that I work with, duos that I work with now. And then I have a couple of trios, like it's me, piano, and Nico. So me, Andrew, and Nico. So we do stuff like that at Huntington Beach, Old World, where we do like Lionel Richie tunes and like Beatles songs and all kinds of different stuff. And because they're so hip with like being able to improvise and come up with their own versions of things, we can break out of the song or connect songs together, or we'll show up to a rehearsal with like 10 songs we're trying to get down, and then we'll come up with like four other songs that we didn't even think about that just melt really well together, and we all knew the songs, and it just, the inspiration kind of flows. So then it became the duo gigs, the trio gigs, and then the small band, and then the big band. So that allowed me to advertise myself for any situation that really comes by, which I limited myself to for a long time. I was like, we can only do rock band gigs, or we're only gonna do book soul tone gigs. Even if it pays $400, we're each gonna make $20 each or something, which didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And now it's like, if they pay a lot, we'll do the big band. If they pay okay, we'll do small band. And if it's pretty low, we'll do duo or trio or make it work so it makes sense for us to accept the gig. That's pretty much how I've approached it recently.
Got it. Yeah, because most people don't know. Like most people don't know. They just they go to the gigs or they go to the venue wherever it's at, and they just see you guys play, but they don't know what the hell's going on behind the scenes and what it takes to get there, right? What it takes to get to that point. Um, so now that you have all these years of experience under your belt and you're still going strong, like what would you say that like venues, managers, whoever these point of contacts, what would you say has been like something that they look for when deciding to bring you and or the band on?
Um, it depends on where and who you're working for. If you're working for like Anaheim Ducks or Brewery X, they're not worried about how many people you bring. Those gigs are going to be packed. They're worried about how unique is your act. Is it different from everyone else? If everyone's going in there playing rock songs from Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd and stuff like that, Jimi Hendrix tunes, they don't want another band to do all the same stuff. So when we come in with a full horn section and do Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, Earth, Wind and Fire, Bruno Mars stuff with the full band, not just like a backing track and a singer and a drummer or whatever, it sets a different atmosphere. So immediately was finding what makes us appealing to the venues. Then it's I usually go in dressed up in a full suit and tie and looking like a professional manager, and I'll get a hold of not just a front desk person but who does the actual booking. And once I get a hold of them, then I'll start developing a relationship with them, and I'll try to be as confident and demanding as far as what our worth is, while also being humble and appreciative for us being able to play there. And the way I usually do that is understanding their business. Like if they can afford to pay us, then I expect to be paid. But if they can't afford to pay us and I understand what their numbers look like and how much they're making, and they just don't have the pricing for the big band, then I'll work something else out. Like, okay, we're gonna play with a smaller band and we're gonna work with your budget and we'll work something out. But I'm not the kind of person that figures out that, like, you're making millions of dollars and you can only afford $200 per, like, night per band. It's like, no, you can afford 4 grand. Like,
Yeah.
let's get but that's the thing. It's knowing when to be aggressive and when to be understanding, and never be arrogant or to a point that they feel like you're just being too demanding and you just feel like, oh, I deserve this and that. And it's like, okay, a perfect example was Anaheim Ducks. When they approached me, they're like, hey, we've sent people out to Brewery X. They've seen you. They think you're good. Brewery X left a good recommendation that you're their top corporate band. So we want to book you to become the Anaheim Ducks band. And would you be interested in that? Then there's other determining factors that come into play, like, do you know hockey, which I didn't. So I had to like research and like learn a lot about, like, the first corporate meeting we had, that they're discussing when we start and stuff. They're like, all right, you're gonna start an hour before the show, and then you're gonna play 20 minutes between first and second period, and 20 minutes between second and third period. And then I asked the question like, so do you want us to play between third and fourth quarter? Oh God. And first of all,
Oh
serious, and
shit.
second of all,
That's
I don't,
that's awesome. It's like one of those want to get away moments. I mean, you're like, you're probably, it's a serious question. They're looking at you like, is this guy freaking kidding me right now? Like,
make fun of myself. I'm like, I don't know if you guys can tell I'm foreign and I don't really know hockey that well. And then they were all laughing and like, okay, we get it. Like, you're not here to know anything. And it's one humbling because it makes you really understand when you're working with somebody to do your research and not look stupid. Like, I'm just explaining like the dumbest moments where I put my foot in my mouth, but we still booked the gig and it was great and they treated us so well, and we have a great relationship with that team now. And next season we're gonna be back with full time playing at a lot of their home games. But it's just the process of, you just met an executive who's the head of the marketing for one of the biggest teams in your area, and how to come off like someone that they're excited to see, not like, okay, I'm dealing with this guy, I just got to book it, and make them feel like they have to do very little work. What time, where, and what kind of music? Perfect. I got the rest covered. You don't have to worry about the musicians. You don't have to worry about the scheduling, anything. Just where do we park? What time to be there? Where are we setting up? That's it. And they were so nice. They gave us like a big team of engineers that like helped us with the audio. They gave us a team of people to take us to our seats, bring us food. It was just ridiculous. Like, the gigs have gotten significantly better than train station. I'll tell you that much.
that's awesome. And so, like, yeah, dude. I mean, just thinking back to how, like, how you guys started at smaller venues, and then now you're playing in front of hundreds of people, hundreds, like thousands of people now, and um, so looking at that progression, throughout your journey, um, Like, talk to me about your experience as far as like, did you was there any point in time where where you're starting to play at like a small bar or a restaurant, one of those smaller venues, to now in front of like hundreds and even thousands of people? Like, what's that experience like, talk to me about that.
Um, I feel like at first it's just nerve wracking playing in front of people, and
Yeah,
you're exposed to making mistakes and looking dumb in front of a bunch of people. But once you get past that, it doesn't become much different. I feel like between like 40 people to 100 people to 1,000 people. It's though you're on stage, you have a job to do. You're either good at it or you're not, and they're gonna react in just bigger numbers. But like it's not uh, I don't get nervous or anything anymore because I that used to be a big thing in front of even like a coffee shop crowd. You're like, oh God, what if I make a mistake? But now it's like there are certain things that as long as I can do them before the gig and I get my head mentally in a place that I'm like I'm confident and I know we're gonna go out there and kill it and I don't have to worry about, oh my God, when is the verse or what is this? You know the song so well that it's internalized. At that point, you're just getting out there and it's like a day in the office. It's not like it's like routine. You're like, I'm gonna play this song to this song, and then we're gonna stop and get ready for the next transition, and this set is gonna be solid, and then we're gonna do a second set, and you have a pretty good idea of what the night's gonna go. And generally, each night, especially I particularly like playing in front of big crowds that don't know us because first set is kind of getting to know us. So I'll play a lot of different stuff. I'll play some soul, I'll play some rock, play some pop. So the younger crowd, the older crowd, everyone who listens to Led Zeppelin, to Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, all the way to Bruno Mars and Mariah, uh, Alicia Keys and all that stuff. So everybody has something that excites them, and then once they're reeled in, second set they're already like drinking a little bit, so they're ready to like get up and dance. And by third set, it's usually a huge party, and everyone's just up there meeting each other and just having a good time. And that's the vibe that we try to aim for, which has been pretty consistent recently. I don't remember playing a bad gig in a long time.
yeah. No, you guys always do a good job of getting the crowd going, man. And you know me. Every time myself, my family's there, hey, we're right out there dancing with all you. So that's what we love, enjoy
Appreciate
doing it. Love going out supporting. But so like looking at when you're having these conversations and talking and all these different experiences as far as playing. Now you're talking to executives. Like, I know you mentioned like the mental part of it, right? So what are some common like mental and or emotional challenges that either you've gone through during this journey, or like maybe you've heard you might know of, that's pretty common with musicians in general, like as you continue to build and go down this journey of like getting more exposure, getting more experience.
There's like, I feel like two part. One is a mental, one is an emotional side.
Mhm.
The emotional side is the variable one. That's pretty. Like, let's say before a gig, you had a fight with somebody, or you're having a hard day, or you got off work getting chewed out by your boss, or something difficult was going on right before you got to the gig. Being able to like kind of let it all go and understand, well, your music is very emotional and you need to be in the moment and you need to be connected to the band and let everything kind of slide by and be in that moment. Being able to clear out your emotions and really be on in present fully is kind of one of the main challenges that at first was happening. It got easier and easier over the years. And the other part is the mental part, the like being completely confident and ready to play whatever's coming. And that usually comes from warming up. I didn't used to warm up. I used to just like go on stage and play. And then a lot of these great singers and pianists that I would watch before concerts, they would always be warming up and doing all kinds of stuff to get their blood going into their fingers, whether it's just like physically moving the blood into your fingers first, then playing like some scales, some arpeggios, some chords, and just being able to move fast and doing stuff that's challenging. So even if the first song has a crazy line in the middle of it, you're not like, oh God, here comes the lick. You're like, yeah, I got it. It's just a lick. Being able to
Yeah.
mentally a place of just confidence. That's I think one of the biggest things that comes across. If you're confident and you're just up there owning it, the crowd feels comfortable and they're just having a good time. But if you're up there looking like you're worried about every little thing coming your way, then it becomes a little hectic and can take away from the performance.
Got it. Yeah, and that's good to know. I mean, I know like in my background, my industry of performance psychology, um, the majority of the clientele that we've worked with, that people have worked with, are like athletes, military personnel, but there's not too many discussions being had as far as like the mental game or the mental side of music, of performance in that nature. And so that's why I asked the question, right? Because most people don't realize what goes on up here. Whether it's during the actual performance itself, leading up to that point. Having these doubts about yourself if you get turned down from gigs, or like you said, if you have gigs and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, like am I in over my head. And that's why I feel it's important to talk about, and because there are people out there who, again, as I mentioned before, there are people who are trying to figure out like I want to get into music. Maybe they're very skilled in a certain instrument. Um, so like if say I was someone who wanted to who came up to you, Fez, and said, listen, you're doing a great job. I want to be where you guys are. I want to be able to perform in front of all these people. Like, what is some advice that you would give me for someone just starting out to be able to break in, to be able to get that experience and exposure?
It's like layers of stuff. So first, it's like independent stuff, stuff to work on yourself. So Joe always talked about this big quote of "Be so good they can't ignore you." So you gotta just first become really good. You gotta practice your ass off. You gotta pick up everything that excites you and be able to do it well, and know where to go get the information. Know who the people you need to approach to make sure you're doing it right. Because for example, classical is a perfect example of something that if you pick it up on your own, you can really pick up some nasty mistakes that are really hard to undo. So you want to first learn the right way and be around people who are good and will push you. Then it's putting a thing together, grabbing some musicians that are at your level, because you don't want to be the guy who can't play in a band that everyone's killing it and you just like feel like crap because you're the worst player all the time. You kind of want to play, at first at least, with people who are about your level, who just want to show up and play constantly and gradually get better and better and better. So once you have a community of like a drummer, bass player, guitar player, something small that you can just start developing on, a keyboard player, then a singer, and it kind of develops into a little band, then you have something to work on. Like this week, you're gonna learn these 4 songs really well, and you're gonna learn all this other stuff. But while you're working on that, you got to work on yourself, which is learning your chords, learning your arpeggios, learning your sense of time, playing with a metronome, and really locking in. Because if you have bad time and you can't keep a measure of 4/4 together without rushing or dragging, it's going to be really hard to play with people, and it's going to be a frustrating process. So it's like the steps. First, can you play well in time? Then can you play with other people? Then making sure the people you're playing with are okay with it sucking at first and not having major gigs, and they're not there like, how much is the gig, how much does it pay, is it worth my time? But it's more about the music. You gotta find people who just want to grow as musicians. And anyone who wants to be really rich and like that's their goal, it's like, I want to like own $1 million house, like music is not the way to do that. Like I feel like that's just not the feel, because people go into like, okay, this one artist or this other guy makes crazy amount of money, but they don't understand the contracts that they're tied up to, how much the money they actually make after the record company, the publishers, the tour managers, all of those guys get their cuts. Like, how much money do they really have? It's usually not in the millions unless you're Bruno Mars or something, which is
Yeah,
obviously a different category of a musician.
yeah,
But overall, it's expectations. It's understanding if you're in it for this, it has to be because you truly love music. And I finished a master's in economics, and all I could think about during that entire process was music. And it helped knowing the business side of things for sure, and has helped me a lot over the years. But at the end of the day, you just got to be happy doing what you're doing. So I would recommend not to do music unless it's truly something that's on your mind all the time and it's something you want to do because it's a brutal industry. There's so many people that want to do it. There's such few jobs for it, and it's met with so much criticism, especially at the beginning. Once you get to the part that everyone likes you, that's the easy part. But it's the, you know, not having a good sense of time, not having a good tone, playing too loud, playing with musicians that aren't very good, and making them feel and sound good. That's like the challenging part. So it's just stick to it. If you want to do it, don't expect to be rich. Expect to have a good time and really good meals and meet a lot of fun people, and work hard. It's just like a lawyer has to go and study the law and practice and work 10 hours a day. That's the same thing. If you're a musician, you got to wake up still early. You got to be ready to shed and then work on your material, and then go to rehearsals and then make calls just like a salesperson would. And it's a business. It's not going to just happen. You just got to put in a ridiculous amount of hours, both on the business end now, because back in the day, you used to just have bands that would be like, all right, here's the Ozzy Osbourne band. They were just good and they had a manager, and that guy would deal with everything. But now it's like you got to put the posters together, you got to promote the show, you got to produce the record, you got to write the material, you got to arrange it, you got to you have to wear so many hats that I feel like the quality goes down a little bit because you don't get to just focus on being a great producer. You don't get to just focus on being a great sound engineer or just a good guitar player or just a good writer. You kind of have to do all of it. And for you to be able to do that all well, you just have to spend a crazy amount of time, focused amount of time to get it to sound better and be as professional as you can be. Because whether you're a rapper or a trombone player, like you have certain amount of lyrics you got to write and certain amount of songs to arrange and play to be able to feel like a mature, well-seasoned musician. So that's where I feel like comes from.
Hey man, that's some good stuff. That's some gold right there. So if you're listening to this, you want to break in, take those pieces of advice. So Fez, my brother, thank you so much for coming on, man. Now, if anyone wanted to follow you or get in contact with you, what would be the best way they could do that?
We have the website www.californiasoultones.com. California is in states, soul as in the music, tones as in notes.com. And I have Instagram, Hafez Karimi, and we also have California Soul Tone Instagram. And those are the main ways. And besides that, it's been just if you know any of the musicians in the band, like your brother, who's an awesome dude, and we've been rocking with him. It's usually word of mouth. People will just kind of come out and see us, and we have a pretty open vibe with the crowd, and they come and say hello, and we make like hundreds of friends each gig, and just come out to a show and say what's up, and it usually goes from there. And yeah.
Awesome, man. Yeah, if you're in in the SoCal area and first of all, go follow them, go to their website, follow them, show some love, and just and keep track of when they're playing because I guarantee you, it's a good time. And you're gonna be dancing whether you're in your seat or on the dance floor. You're gonna be dancing. I promise you that. If you see me or you see my buddy Fez here, go say hi. So yeah, definitely check out California Soul Tones and my good friend Fez Karima here. So Fez, thank you so much again for coming on, man. You shared a lot of good insight, a lot of good perspective, and I appreciate you taking the time out today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, man. So all right, guys. Well, that'll do it for this edition of the Dr. Code Show. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Okay. Bye.